which is the new big constitution battle in front of us. How come it is Supreme Court versus the Online Gaming Act?
Online real money gaming is a threat.
And is really right to gaming a fundamental right? Today's Supreme Court hearing about online gaming is not just about an industry. It is about constitutional right, it is about digital regulation and how economic consequences are tied to it. Hello everyone, welcome to Vajiram and Ravi's Flash News. My name is Shubhangi Singh and today we are going to understand all the aspects which are surrounding this question where banning of games is basically infringing of fundamental rights or banning the online games is totally the right call. So let us try to understand all of this in detail, starting with the very basic question that why online gaming is such a huge point of debate, why this issue has become nationally important. So if we talk about the online gaming industry, it is one of the fastest growing industry in our country and it is already a 20,000 plus crore market. And this fast growth that I am talking about is driven by multiple things such as cheap data, mobile penetration where you see mobile phones in almost everybody's hand, and also the fantasy leagues, rummy and poker esports games which keep people not just entertained but also involved. Now this gaming industry had such a huge contribution, but at the same time it had multiple issues as well which were causing the growth, yes, but at the same time there were other sort of repercussions as well. This very industry was the responsible reason where we saw an explosion of suicide, addiction to these games, money losses, and most importantly, minors' exposure in the online fantasy games as well. Now, because of this, there has been a long time legal ambiguity about this because for the longest time, courts have clearly distinguished two types of games. Games of skills, for example, chess, where you have to use your own skill and then maybe you can win the game or lose the game. But there is another game that is game of chance where your winning is not dependent on your skill, it is dependent on sheer chance. And this is where we are talking about games like rummy, poker, etc. Now, because of this very industry, these were not the only issues. There was an issue of rising offshore betting apps which were coming in, and they were not also bringing the financial risk, but they were also tied to national security risk. Now, because of all this, an act was brought in by Parliament, that was the Promotion as well as Regulation of Online Gaming Act of 2025. And this was the starting point of this whole debate as well as the legal battle as well. Now, this act was passed and according to this act, Parliament can easily control the addiction which was coming with these games, the money laundering, illegal offshore betting and also the social harm. And this was being done through certain provisions that we will be talking about after this. But the problem that happened with this particular regulation, that the distinction that legal courts always carried with the skill games and the games of chance, that was removed. This classification was not taken into consideration, and as a result, all the games, be it rummy, poker, the fantasy sports that we are talking about, all of them were treated equivalent to gambling, and that's why were put under the banned umbrella. Now, because of this, all of a sudden, this industry suffered a huge hit, and industrialists have been calling it a civil death of this very industry. Now, when we are talking about the starting point as the Online Gaming Act, it becomes important for us to also understand that what has been the reason that the petition has been taken in and what will be the Supreme Court hearing about. So, the petition has been filed and they want the Online Gaming Act to be stayed, especially the enforcement on the section 14, 15 and 16, and protection should be given on the coercive action that can come as a result of this particular act, and especially there should be a recognition of games of skill so that the blanket ban that is present on all the games that can be taken away. This is what the petitioner in this particular situation is seeking. But government is also ready with the answer, where government is very clear that as of now this whole case is in a very premature situation because the act has not been notified yet. So as of now, there can be no action that can be taken, and that's why no violation can be notified by the petitioner. However, in this hearing, we already have two sides, where one side of the petitioner is asking for the ease on the gaming industry, online sports industry, but at the same time, we also have CASCPIL, which are coming from the other side. This petition has been merged and they are asking for the all blocking of all the illegal apps that exist. Now that we have understood the petition, the key cause of the legal battle, now I will take you to understand that what are the provisions of Online Gaming Act 2025. Now this is one act which classifies the games but at the same time has provisions separately for them. For example, when we talk about online games, the first category has been made permissible. But the problem with permissibility is that the approval will be given by central authority. It should meet the transparency and safety criteria, and there will be very strict KYC norms. On this very note, can I ask you this one question? In which list sports is included? Is it the part of union list, state list, or concurrent list? Can you tell me in the comments section? Now the second category is the non-permissible games. This means any game which involves any type of stakes, any type of wager or betting, this will not be permitted. So it does not depend on the skill or the chance related to the game. This distinction has been removed, and this is where the major controversy stands with regards to the case that we are talking about. Other than that, there is a clear blanket ban on any sort of real money gaming. So if any game involves real money, that means money is involved, that has been made illegal. It applies to be it rummy, poker, fantasy sport, mobile stake based tournament, any of sort where money is involved. And that is why this sector, this industry is saying that this particular act will end this industry in a day. Now that we have understood the provisions of this particular act also, let us also look into an important component, which is the Central Gaming Authority, Online Gaming Authority that has been made. And this will be a national level regulator which has huge amount of powers. It is responsible for approval, it is responsible for monitoring, it is responsible for issuing and also cancelling the licenses. So all the power is concentrated in one place, and the government says in the age where we have a digital economy, you have to understand that monitoring is very important, and because digital economy is part of union list, that's why Parliament is fully competent to bring such authority, such a act, and this should not be questioned. So this is the government's rationale on their own end. Furthermore, the most important question that remains unanswered as of now is why this act is considered controversial, or what are the issues with the act that the petition has been filed for. Now let us move to understand that. So when we are talking about in the initial conversation, we only discussed this, that section 14, 15 and 16. This is where the main petition is concentrated and addressal has been asked on for. So based on that, we have to understand that where this act violates the rights. So if we talk about Article 19(1)(g), it talks about right to trade, right? That means you have a fundamental right where you can look after your livelihood and you have the right to trade. Now when we are talking about games of skill and making that as your business, this is a legitimate form. This is recognized by multiple Supreme Court rulings also, and the blanket ban on this very legitimate business will be unconstitutional because this is right to trade. Other than that, there is another provision that is being violated, that is the proportionality test. So when we talk about the government could have easily regulated this sector instead of going for a blanket ban through licensing, through properly making sure that there is age gating. There could have been spending caps which could have been placed, geo-blocking, all the illegal acts. But herein government chose the most extreme solution, that is in an arbitrary form putting a blanket ban. And furthermore, another main component that comes in here, that the distinction that was kept by the judiciary alive, the skill and chance. Legal courts have always talked about games of skill and games of chance and kept them, dealt with them separately. But in this situation, this distinction has been taken away. So here we also get to see that this is against decades of jurisprudence that has been practiced over year, and it is absolutely ignoring the skill component, which comes irrational. Another thing this act violates is the free speech violation. When we are talking about Article 19(1)(a), the section 6 of this particular act puts up a complete ban on gaming ads as well. That means any sort of advertisement is also part of commercial speech. So if you are banning this, that means you are also violating the freedom of speech as well. And all of this will have economic consequences. As I said, it is already a 20,000 plus crore industry. More than 500 companies will be affected. Millions of gamers will be affected. And as I mentioned, industries are already calling it a civil death of this particular industry. So in this situation, it becomes very important that what Supreme Court will give as a verdict in order of this petition and how this needs to be addressed. There are few suggestions on this end which we can look into way forward. As a way forward, you all can give me your suggestions as well. For example, when we are talking about safety and consumer protection and also the enforcement, there are many provisions which are given in this very act. There is a very strong consumer protection regime, mandatory KYC, spending limits, age verification, parental controls. All of this could have been used very well. Other than that, when we are talking about the enforcement part of this act, this is where it gets controversial. The initial part is fine. If this would have been the main character of the act and this would have been concentrated on, then it wouldn't have been that controversial, because the industry would gradually have wrapped themselves around these regulations. But the controversial part is through the enforcement, where we get to see a lot of power being concentrated with police, central agencies. They have the power to investigate. This will lead to raids, data seizures, blocking, criminal penalties, and this also shows that the high amount of concentration of power that we are giving to them, that misuse is a great possibility here, and requirement of safeguards as well. So when we are talking about way forward, the first part, yes, it should look like this, but this is one part which needs proper addressal as well. What do you think about this note? Let me know in the comment section. What do you think the Supreme Court will take the hearing on, what side it will end up? Now let us look into what important answers that Supreme Court is going to give us today. Supreme Court is going to clarify on multiple important provisions, such as, is online gaming protected under Article 19? Can Parliament actually impose a blanket ban? Because if we talk about sports, it comes under the state list. Other than that, another important question is that what part of this act violates proportionality? Where could have been the line between ban and regulation? And what could have been done with terms of skill and chance in terms of distinction? And many more factors such as federalism and free speech. We will be talking in detail once the verdict is out, so that we are able to understand other factors around it as well. Now I will be leaving you with a practice question here. You can put down your answers in the comment section. The answer for yesterday's question related to India-China issue is B. That was all from my side. Thank you so much.